Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Marty Supreme, making $3.5 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $86 million and a worldwide total of $102 million. Surprise, surprise, Marty Supreme stuck around for another weekend. You know, given the fact that 28 years later was just last weekend, it was pretty much assumed that this would be the one to keep Marty Supreme out of the top 5, but no, Marty Supreme held it strong, surprisingly, which I think says a lot more about how horrible 28 Laters is doing as opposed to this. But you know, we're here to talk about Marty, and yeah, again, just the fact that I was able to withstand not only, you know, 28 years later, but also a huge winter storm, you're gonna hear me saying that a lot throughout this video, is really telling on how strong the word of mouth has been for this movie. It had one of the better holds in the top 5, a 36% drop off, you know, so the storm, it affected it, but not by as much as people thought it would. And again, you know, it dethroned 28 years later. It kept it out of the top 5 this weekend. Really impressive stuff here. Yeah, just not much more else to say with this one. Marty Supreme still going strong. Number 4 was The Housemaid, making $3.9 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $115 million and its worldwide total to $296 million. So despite it falling 54%, I think that was definitely because of the storm. It's still chugging along. It's still a force to be reckoned with, even with, you know, the actual storm being a much bigger force, but you know, still pulling in some strong numbers, still doing mighty well for itself. It's past 100 million domestically. It's on its way to 120 million. I think it sees itself with 130 million domestically. I'm not sure if it's going to get to the 150 million domestic total. I know I'm saying a lot of numbers right now, but even internationally, this movie is still doing well. It's on its way to 300 million worldwide, a huge accomplishment if I do say so myself, and already it's Paul Feig's biggest film ever worldwide. It surpassed Bridesmaids. It has really, you know, once again become the surprise hit of the holiday season. I think because of how it did this weekend, this does signify that we're going to see it on its slowdown period. I think the hype will slowly but surely diminish from this point forward, but still, you know, still doing mighty well for the type of movie it was. And again, considering everything it had to go up against, Avatar and 2 other animated movies around the holiday season, the fact that this was still able to come out on top of at least the animated movies is still really damn impressive. Yeah, just really solid numbers for The Housemaid. Number 3 was once again Zootopia 2, making $5.6 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $401 million and its worldwide total to $1.7 billion. It has finally done it, ladies and gentlemen. It has officially not only surpassed Frozen, but also become a $400 million movie, the 3rd film to do so. That came out last year. It sits behind Lilo and Stitch and a Minecraft movie. That question remains, will it make enough to surpass both of those movies, considering how close those two were? Hopefully it can. It's still got a while before the next animated movie, and again, while, you know, the storm really affected it, it still held its own. Just 42% drop off, which isn't actually that bad, again, considering how major this storm was, how many families were largely affected by it. They, you know, the fact that it was able to hold honestly that well is pretty impressive. And you know, again, $400 million milestone. It is now the 3rd biggest animated film from Disney domestically, you know, sitting behind Moana 2 and The Lion King. A huge juggernaut, huge success story, $1.7 billion. It should get to $1.8 billion very soon. I'm not sure about $2 billion anymore. I think we're heading for the slowdown period. Yeah, it's still got a couple more weeks until GOAT again, but you know, I think we're gonna see the, like with The Housemaid, slowly but surely the slowdown period really commence for this movie. But still, you know, again, huge juggernaut. Like I said with The Housemaid, the fact that this was the big animated movie of the holiday season, despite the fact it was the oldest one by a long shot, is still mighty impressive. And again, just the fact that it is the biggest animated film of last year and Disney's now biggest animated film is truly something worth celebrating. Number 2 was Avatar Fire and Ash, making $6.4 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $377 million and a worldwide total of $1.3 billion. It has finally been done, ladies and gentlemen. Avatar has finally been dethroned. It happened a lot quicker than I think most people were expecting it to do, but hey, it's gonna happen eventually, especially given how the legs on this, they haven't been as strong as the first two, so I doubt as many people as I thought there were as surprised as I think a lot of others are. Again, I just don't think this movie really translated well outside of the holidays. That holiday rush really benefited, really boosted it, but it seemed more likely that this was gonna happen sooner rather than later. But even if so, this movie is still like a huge juggernaut success. Maybe not as big as they hoped it would be, but still, it's a $1.3 billion movie. It should get to $1.5 billion very, very soon, as well as $400 million domestically. But again, I think comparing this to Zootopia 2, it's clear which one was more appealing, which one really won a lot more people over as opposed to this one, which again is pretty surprising. A pleasant surprise, but still pretty surprising. We're probably gonna see it hang around outside the top 3 for the next couple weeks and then eventually leave the top 5 again, probably sooner rather than later. But yeah, it had a solid run. It didn't have a magnificent or spectacular run like we've seen with the other two, but it had a solid run, certainly better than what other movies had last year. And again, still $1.3 billion, huge number. And finally, let's end the video off with the number 1 movie of the weekend, which was Mercy, opening with $10 million this weekend domestically and $22 million worldwide. This is the 3rd biggest opening of the year. It topped Greenland 2 Migration, but still sits behind both Primate and 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Well, I guess it could have been worse. I mean, it had to deal with a huge winter storm affecting several states and many movie theaters. The fact that it got over double digits is honestly pretty remarkable. And hey, it is the first movie to, take down Avatar. At least it has that going for it. But, considering even with those things helping it out somewhat, I guess, it's still a really bad opening. I mean, they put it in January for a reason. Yeah, I just did not see the hype or buzz surrounding this movie. It just barely anyone seemed interested in seeing this. The marketing wasn't too great either. Barely saw a lot of promos for it, and people who saw it did not really care for it. Critics hated this movie. The reviews are really bad, like 18% last I checked, and audiences aren't too fond of the film either. It got a B- on Cinema Score. That puts it on par with Primate, and that's a horror movie, at least, that'd be good for a horror movie, but for like an action crime drama somewhat, that's pretty bad. That's really bad. It's also on par with Greenland 2 Migration, and look how that movie's done. Yeah, just a really bad opening, not great reception, and a really big budget, $60 million for this thing. I'm not sure this is gonna be able to recover even once the storms pass. Yeah, just a really bad opening for Mercy. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend's big new wide release is Send Help, the latest from Sam Raimi. It follows 2 co-workers. One of them is the boss, the other one is a worker who feels underappreciated at her job. But on a corporate plane trip, the plane crashes on a deserted island, and now the patriarchy is reversed, where she's taking in charge and he's the one who has to, deal with, being underutilized or something. And basically, both of them trying to survive in this deserted island situation. It's definitely an interesting movie, and I can definitely see it, benefiting from the theaters reopening. It's a Sam Raimi film. The marketing has actually been pretty solid. I've been seeing some promos for it here and there, and it's also got star power, especially with Rachel McAdams, and the buzz seems to be somewhat there. I do see some people talking about it, but I'm also not expecting a whole lot from this movie. It's been a pretty busy month for horror. And while I do see buzz for the film, it's not like a whole lot outside of diehard horror fans or diehard Sam Raimi fans. I feel like a lot of people just don't see the appeal to this thing. It almost comes off as just many people are reading this as just, oh, two people are on a deserted island and then she goes crazy or something. That's what I'm getting from the response from other people viewing this. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, I don't think this is gonna bomb. It's not gonna be a Mercy or Greenland. I think this has a shot at beating 28 Years Later, maybe, if the movie is really good and reception is really strong. I'm not sure what the reviews are right now, but we'll just wait and see. But yeah, I'm not expecting a whole lot, but not a disaster either. But we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.